Hello. So, following on from my last video, you might have seen the arches after I put the wheel spacers on were rubbing really bad. So today the job is to try and roll the arches a little bit. I don't know if it's going to make much difference because I'm not sure if it's the actual metal arch beneath the arch cover or the arch cover that's rubbing. Can't see rub marks, so I'm just gonna roll the arches, take it for a test drive and see if that cures the problem.
As usual, put the wooden chocks under the wheels and drive it up onto them so there's enough space for the jack to get underneath. Just let her tick over for a couple of seconds because she can be temperamental if you try and drive her straight away. I think she's about ready now to get up onto the ramps, so let's do it. Sounds like it needs a bit of WD-40, that I reckon. Get the jack in place and start getting her off the floor.
There isn't a whole lot of space beneath this car for getting the jack in, so obviously have to roll it onto makeshift stands to lift off the floor a little bit to get the jack in, but even when it's done that, it is still seriously tight. Just enough space to move the jack up and down to start with, and then gradually as it starts lifting up, it frees up a little bit of space so you can actually get some proper jack movement going on.
Undoing the wheel nuts now, doing the bottom one last so that holds the wheel in place whilst I undo the others.
But my first plan, you can see it's been rubbing a little bit there. First plan is to roll this little bit of metal out of the way here, and hopefully that will help a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do with my tools, is put a bit of tape over the metal, so when I'm hitting the panel it's not just metal on metal and is far less likely to chip the paint. Stupid as it sounds, this little putting a little bit of tape over your stuff, the tools that you're going to use, can save you having to repaint, so worth doing.
So I started this job without my metal plate behind just to see how easy this was going to roll. I needed the support behind to knock against to get the lip to bend over. So in it goes, and let's get cracking.
It's working lovely. It's not going to save me from repainting. The paint has flaked off the edge. There's a little bit of flakage in there. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to spray it, I'm going to get some underseal on a brush and brush that on the edge because you don't see this bit, and that will do the job lovely. Give it a bit of a rub over with some sandpaper, a bit of panel wipe, and be good to go.
So here I'm using some 180 grit sandpaper. Generally wouldn't be a finishing paper, but under here it doesn't really matter. Underseal time.
Not the ideal paintbrush for doing it, but it's the only one I can find, so it is what it is. So that is one side done. Fingers crossed that the wheel doesn't rub on this side. Now on to the next.
All that was left to do was get the wheel back on, then lower the car down, get the jack out so I can slide it back under the other side and do that side as well.
Nice and slow. Oh, forgot the axle stands still under there. to go. So on the other side of my car in the garage, there's not as much space to work. It's a bit tight, but it is what it is. Some people ain't got a garage, so I count myself fortunate that I got enough space to do the car in here. So yeah, let's go on to the other side. It's going to be a little bit tighter, but we'll get the job done.
Going up. Almost did my usual trick here and forgot to take the tension off the wheel nuts before I jacked it up. Whoops.
Barely any space down this side at all.
If ever you're working on a car, I would always recommend that you put in an axle stand underneath. Don't be a hero. For your safety and for the car's safety, I mean, you would be absolutely gutted if the car fell off and you knackered it. And even more than that, you know, if you're in a situation, you're by yourself and your car was to fall off and you become trapped underneath, we have got a problem.
The same process on this side. Sandpaper. Panel white. And some seal.
Wheel back on time. We're nearly done. Once again, starting by putting the bottom wheel nut in first to hold the wheel firm whilst we put the other ones in finger tight. And if you're using a gun, I would advise always doing them with your fingers first. Don't want to cross thread them.
Rub it down. Slammed. Always make sure you're nipping up the wheel bolts when you're done. Don't forget that. Done it myself. Ended up driving on the road. Wheel rolled off in front of me. Came loose. Nightmare. Job done. So that is another job out of the way, and it's time to take her for a test drive. That time again, test drive time. I mean, it's got to be better than last time, because last time we did this, it was rubbing before I even left the garage. Like, I was rolling out of the garage, went down the little bump and it was rubbing. So far, no rubs. So let's see how we get on. I mean, I'm feeling pretty positive. A couple of bumps, nothing so far. This is looking like a win. Somebody just gave me a little smile, looked at my car. That's always nice. Like, when you put a lot of work into something like your car, it's nice when people appreciate it, isn't it? I'm sure people that go to the shows will feel the same way. Especially in a situation where it's like, there's like a meme that I've seen a few times. It says it means so much to me when a kid looks at my car, because once upon a time I was that kid, and that's very true. Like, I'm obsessed with cars, have been since I was a kid, and all the cars I used to look at, I mean, yeah, they have pretty much shaped my life. Like, I don't know where I would be or what I would be doing with my life if it wasn't for cars. I absolutely love them. I'm making them my own. I mean, we have no rubs so far. This is excellent news. I'm very happy. Yeah, very much in the early 2000s, when the Max Power Live shows were on at the NEC and all the rest of it, I'd go around, look at the cars, I'd take whatever money I'd saved. I think I was earning about £170 a week at the time. and I'd take whatever money I'd saved and take it to the Max Power shows, try and buy myself whatever parts I could. I had a car sat on the drive I bought when I was 16, and I pretty much started doing it up from that point. Like, and yeah, my mate, who's a bit older than me, big up Chris Brain, he would pick me up, I think reluctantly at the time, because it was my dad who was mates with his dad, would ask would ask if I wanted to go with him, and he would pick me up. But I mean, now we're good friends, so yeah, he helped with my obsession with the cars. Great friend, good guy. Yeah, we'd go to the shows. Back then, I mean, it was as much about going to see the cars as it was the girls, you know. Like, if ever there was a crowd at a show, you could always guarantee it was because there was either a really nice car being unveiled, or there was a girl with her boobs out. It was one or the other. It was like a teenager's dream, really. But yeah, I mean, back then it was a lot different. There was no social media, there was no pressure as such to do your car in any sort of particular way, and that's why I think back then, although, you know, some people don't really like it now, it's sort of frowned and laughed upon in some circles, like, back then it was all about what your imagination could do. It wasn't about how big your wallet was or anything like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were still the people that, I don't know what finance was about, but would take loans and all the rest of it and just spend an absolute fortune doing a car that, you know, was absolutely ridiculous. But for the most part, it was about, you know, people scraping together what money they had and learning the skills. I mean, YouTube wasn't about back then, so anything that you were going to do to your car, it was very much trial and error. It was, you know, you'd have a go. If it didn't work, you'd try something else, and that was how you learned. Literally trial and error. You'd fuck up a lot of times, but, you know, you'd get there in the end, and that's what it was all about. Like, being on a drive with your mates, just with an angle grinder and a hammer and whatever you could get your hands on. One of the fiberglass kits from Halfords. I mean, my parents used to joke. My dad used to say I should have shares in Isopon. I used to buy that much filler. I mean, even then, back then filler was horrible to sand down. It was like trying to rub down concrete. But, you know, I think back then we were perhaps a little bit hardier, if that's the word. Maybe a bit tougher. We were a bit more, you know, patience to do things. Nowadays, I find that, you know, everybody wants it handed on a plate, which is why a lot of people just go hand the car over to a company, say I want this doing, and then they drive out with a car that's already done up. For me, I mean, some people won't like when I say this, because a lot of people are the type of people that do that, and you know what, it is what it is. Some people ain't got the skills. I've got no intention of learning the skills. I mean, when I was a kid, you had no choice. But for me, modifying cars is about what you can do. Like, you can stand back, like the pride that you feel when you're at a show and people are appreciating your car, and like inside, you know, yeah, I built that. That is done with my hands, you know. It feels, I mean, for anybody that hasn't done that and just, you know, pay somebody else for them to do their car, you know, it's a shame, because don't get me wrong, there is nothing really wrong with it, but you just don't feel the same pride, I imagine, that you feel when you've really put all your time and effort into building this car, and you can be like, yeah, I did that. That is definitely what I love about the car scene back then. Going back to what I was saying about no social media and that, like, there was no pressures, like, to do your car in a particular way. Like, your modifications on your car, you would pretty much do whatever your imagination could bring up in your head. Like, there was nobody on social media laughing at you or saying, haha, that looks stupid, like you do nowadays, which I believe is why, you know, modified cars always very much these days go in the same direction. They're all bags, lowered, wraps. Like, there's no real imagination to the car scene anymore. It's just copy what the next guy's doing, you know. Someone might have a bit more money and they can perhaps take it a step further, but a lot of it is like carbon copy from one car to the next. Bags, that's wraps and all that. It's just not the same. I mean, back in the day, some of the cars that you would see, I mean, they're not to people's taste these days. You know, times change, things move on. But back then, it was absolutely crazy. There was a website that used to be around called Barry Boys, which used to absolutely slay the modified cars. One of my cars made it on there. Proud now, I was well pissed off at the time. When my car made it on Barry Boys, I wanted to go punch their faces in, but now I look back and it's just funny. Yeah, I mean, there's still a group of us that, you know, the Max Power reunion lot, we still love what we did back then. It's what we grew up with. We still love it now. So I still do. I mean, when I started building this car, I have to be honest, when I grew up in the Max era, and the Charisma Renault 5, as you probably guessed, was a rub there, but we went down a big divot in the road. But yeah, the Charisma Renault 5 was my bedroom poster wall car. So when I bought a Renault 5, that was my intention, you know, in my head that's what I wanted to do, but then I'm looking around and I'm like thinking, where am I going to fit in with that? So I built it originally just with the Charisma front bumper and the rest of it pretty standard, although lowered, different wheels and the roll cage and what have you. Like, it was very much to fit in with what I would call the modern day modified scene. But then about 6 months after I'd built the car, Mark, the main man, made a bet with his son Jack about getting the most followers on an Instagram page. Started the Max Power reunion page, and then off the back of that, the Max Power reunions come around. I went to the first reunion, you know, not knowing anybody, just turned up with my car, managed to blag my way into the X feature cars bit. Definitely was not a feature car ever. It was built just before the first lockdown. But made it on there, you know, started talking to people, made a few friends. The Charisma Renault 5 that I'd seen so many times in the early 2000s was there, and you know, it blew my mind, and I went away from that show thinking, yeah, that this is why I modify cars. This is what I need to do to my car. And I went home, got on the internet and started scouring for, you know, old Max Power parts for my car. And as many people will know that have been doing this, they're not the easiest things to find. I mean, it took me 2.5 years to find the Charisma spoiler. I found the Charisma back bumper. I ended up travelling 6-hour round trip to get that. I've since butchered it. I've made it my own. Just call and see my parents. I made it my own, but this is exactly why I do what I do. Like, if you ever come, if we've got stand anywhere at the at any of the shows, you come and talk to the Max Power lot. Great group of people. Like, there's no arrogance. You know, nobody looks down on anybody. Whether you know, you might have an amazing car, you might have, you know, somebody's put together as best they can, but everybody is welcome. Like, nobody has their nose turned away, and that for me is what cars are all about. Like, when I go to, I love working on my car, I love it, but when I go to the shows, like, I literally go, I park my car up, and then that's it. I hardly pay any attention to it all weekend then. I'm just having fun with my friends, seeing my mates, having a laugh, usually taking a piss out of Dylan, you know, because that's a standard thing to do. He needs somebody tell him he's bald on top and he's just clinging on to the last bit of his hair. He needs to get rid of the sides, man. Oh, big up Dylan, good lad. Anyway, I'm gonna go see my parents a minute whilst I'm out in the car. Bring my dad out to have a look at my car. I'll be back in a minute. I just went to show my dad my new my car with my wheel spacers on. He hasn't seen it yet, and he's kind of the reason I'm into cars. When I was a youngster, he used to restore classic cars, and you know, he
he gave me this disease. It was inherited from my father. A disease it definitely is. It would have been cheaper to take up drugs. But yeah, he likes it. I'm very happy with that. Very happy the car isn't rubbing. I can drive to the car show tomorrow without any worries whatsoever. I was concerned about wrecking the car to pieces on the way. I mean, there's no way. Geezer just walking in the middle of the alley like, there's no way he could not hear my car to let me pass, but he was just being a knob. I'm gonna go put her away now. Get her back in the garage, give her a bit of a wipe over, ready for tomorrow. It's an outdoor show, so I'm not going absolutely crazy with it. Like, I mean, the car could do with a machine polish, to be honest with you, before ultimate stance comes around. But this show at Trentham tomorrow's outdoors, so it's not going to make much odds. Hasn't got the kind of lighting, obviously, that indoor shows have got. But yeah, for ultimate stance, she will be getting the machine polish. It's been a while since I did it, to be honest. That's turned out. No rubbing whatsoever until we went down that big divot, but I'm not worried about that. If it ain't rubbing, it ain't low enough, but could do without the permanent rubbing, the stress of that. So yeah, at least it's not wrecking a car now. We're not rubbing like we were, just a little rub every now and again. We can live with that. So thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Thanks for watching.